Good evening to all of you. There are more eminent people than me to speak about Congress in the speaker panel, like my brother Sanjeev Batraji and my another brother Sanjay Vermaji, who know Congress much better than me. But since Yusuf has called me to talk about Congress Party, I will talk about Congress Party. How much I know, I am not an expert on that. Friends, as you all know, Congress was founded in 1885. Today, okay, say around 137 years back, okay, and it started primarily not to fight for Indian independence or something like that. It was more or less, its first session was held in from December 28th to 31st. At the initiative of a retired civil servant, Officer Alien Octavian A.O. Hume. Okay. Basically, Hume had this, did this for representing Indian interests, maybe, for greater share in, for educated Indians in the government and stuff like that. Then it became a civic and political platform to take on the British Raj. So that is how it actually started. Then, it went on, more or less, a lot of British officers only were there, along with some from Indian side, like Umesh Chandra Banerjee was the first president of the Congress. Only 72 delegates attended the first session, like that. Okay. Then after that, early years, Bal Gangadhar Tilak was its president in 1907. Then, as you know, this Congress became a platform for the freedom movement. Am I audible? Hello?
Yeah.
Okay. It became a platform for freedom movement. Congress had numerous personalities and prominent political figures. Dadabhai Nauroji was one of them. Then Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Bipin Chandra Pal, Lala Rajpat Rai, Gopal Krishna Gokhale, Jinnah. A lot of people were there. It was a congregation. Congress in itself means congregation of people. Okay, the very meaning of Congress was congregation of people. So it had a lot of people from the left, right, and center. People from all ideologies were part of Congress. But even though it started in 1885, the real Congress as a mass movement started when Mahatma Gandhi returned from South Africa in 1915. That was when Congress became a mass movement. He also formed an alliance with Khilafat movement in 1920, and then you all know what all happened for preservation of Ottoman Caliphate. Khilafat movement was formed. Civil disobedience or satyagraha was a tool which Mahatma Gandhi utilized. I will not go into too much details of that history of Congress. I will just go through because there's no use of doing a postmortem of what happened then. But we'll have some reference points, and then we will see the emergence of Congress pre-independence and on the eve of independence and post-independence period. We all know how Congress became a platform for all freedom fighters, cutting across spectrums of ideology to fight the British. There were so many eminent personalities who headed the Congress, right from Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, lot of people, great people headed the Congress. Even Jawaharlal Nehru's father also headed the Congress. Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. So a lot of people were there who headed the Congress, and then Congress Congress was a platform to launch so many initiatives like Purna Swaraj, disobedience movement, salt satyagraha, and stuff like that. For any struggle, you need a platform, and Congress was the platform for our struggle. Okay. Then, if you see, there were presidents from right also who headed the Congress. There were presidents from the left also, like Subhash Chandra Bose was there. There were centrists also who headed it at different levels. Then we all know that what happened and how through non-violence and satyagraha movement, Gandhiji, along with our founding fathers of our nation. Lord, how many can I name? If I keep on naming, it will not be good. But to name few, Nehru, then, Vallabhbhai Patel, Maulana Azad. So like that, all these people who were in the forefront of freedom movement. In 1947, we got our freedom for this country. Now, a lot of people from the right say that Congress was different, this Congress is different. Because that side has a lacuna, like Mallikarjuna Kharge said in the House, in the Rajya Sabha, or Lok Sabha also when he was opposition leader. Show me one dog from the other side who has fought and for the freedom and laid his life for this country. And he was so prophetic. When we searched it, there were none. But today's National General Secretary, Mr. Santosh, in a speech recently said, no dogs from our side fought for this thing because we were not part of any party, but we were fighting for the nation. That's what he said. But he forgot that none from his side fought, and in fact they sided with our perpetrator, the British, starting from Savarkar or any notable name from that side. Okay, so that was the difference between Congress in pre-independence and the Hindu Mahasabha or RSS in the pre-independence period. So, if you look at the legacy part, no one can deny the role of Congress in making this country, India. Because pre-independence, there was no country as such. Even post, during the early British period also, our country was divided into large kingdoms, small kingdoms, maybe hundreds and hundreds. So there was no country as such. If you look at the very concept of India, it started somewhere during the British period only. Then the whole country. Then you all know what happened. Pakistan again got divided into Pakistan and Bangladesh. So the very purpose of India as a country, if not for Congress, it wouldn't have happened. Because we never know. If great leaders like Gandhi, Nehru were not at the helm of affairs of Congress party. Just imagine on the eve of independence, if someone like a rightist would have been getting the Congress, or a rightist would have been negotiating with Mountbatten or British on how the division partition was to be made, or how the independence movement, independence for the country would have, the whole process would have started. Just imagine India if one from that side would have been at the helm of the affairs. Just because we had liberals, progressive, seculars like Gandhi, Nehru, Vallabhbhai Patel, and today Vallabhbhai Patel they are appropriating, but there is no doubt in my mind that Vallabhbhai Patel was a great secular in himself, and the respect that he had for Gandhi was enormous. He, in his autobiography or somewhere, I don't know exactly because I haven't come prepared for this talk. He says, someone says that the respect of Vallabhbhai towards Gandhi was so huge, okay, that whenever Gandhi spoke, he never spoke. He never spoke. And whenever he spoke, he made sure that he was the last to speak. That means whenever there was no Gandhi, he was the last guy to speak, because he will never allow anyone after him to speak. Because that was the aura of that man. On one side, you can see the aura of that man. On the other side, you can see his respect and love for Gandhiji. Sardar too respected Nehru, but today a lot of stories are there. But there was a huge little age gap between Nehru and Sardar. That is why Gandhi and the Congress decided that Nehru would be the first Prime Minister of India. So this is in short what Congress has done for this country in pre-independence period. But if we keep on basking on our pre-independence area, what work Congress did in the post-independence is as important as what it did in pre-independence. Because a lot of countries which got independence from British failed as a state or failed as a nation, and Pakistan is a classical example of what happened. Post Jinnah becoming Prime Minister, and Jinnah couldn't be there for long, and you know what happened for that country. So if you see that way, okay, India has been lucky to find leaders with a lot of foresight, and just look at our constitution and the democracy that we followed, the parliamentary system of democracy, and how India evolved to be one of the world's best democracy and the largest democracy today. If you see US also today, the way they struggled with their US presidential polls, so much confusion. At least in India, we don't have that confusion. For the last 75 years, the constitution and our democratic mechanisms have stood the test of time. For generations, if you see from 50s to 2020, 7-8 generations. Okay, 7-8 decades. Okay, at least my this thing says that at least 3 generations. My grandfather, my father, and now me, and next my son, maybe 3 or 4 he can take. And that's what Congress has done. Now, if you look at post-independence, what is Congress's contribution to this country? Just imagine, if not for Ambedkar, who has written this constitution, suppose a Savarkar or a Godse or a Govalkar sort of a guy, a rightist, would have written this constitution, what would have been the fate of this country? Now just imagine. Nehru had differences with Ambedkar. Gandhi had differences with Ambedkar. You all know what happened in the Round Table Conference. Ambedkar wanted a separate electorate. You know the fight between both of them. See, that's very important. Matbhed hona chahiye. We should have differences, but the differences should not lead to, how do I put it? It should not lead to bad blood. It should not lead to, vindictiveness. So our founding fathers were leaders of that tribe. Even though Nehru became the Prime Minister, even though he had lot of differences with Ambedkar had differences with them, but he chose the Congress party, or the founding fathers of that day chose Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar to write our constitution. Because for any democracy to thrive, the constitution is the backbone for any democracy. Because without it, a lot of democracies have failed. Without a stable constitution, a lot of democracies will fail. So this constitution written by our great founding fathers, including Babasaheb Ambedkar, as the president of the drafting committee or chairman of the drafting committee, has put such fantastic and strong foundations for this democracy to thrive, that even today, a rightist government with absolute power also is not able to do much, other than trying some small things, to alter the equations of the constitution and stuff like that. Now, if you look at someone saying, why did Indira Gandhi put socialist and secularism, secular into the preamble of the constitution? One rightist was telling this in one room. I was just thinking, she did that because she felt that, one fine day in 2020s, a government will come to power with such brute majority that they will question the very secular fabric of this nation. Unity of diversity is our essence of our democracy. That very principle, these rightists might one day, question. That is why she put it. If you read the preamble, excluding that, in 1974 or 76 when that was inserted. You take justice, fraternity, liberty, and all the words which are written thereby, which were actually written by Jawaharlal Nehru in 1946. But Baba Saheb Ambedkar took it as a preamble when he became the chairman of the traffic. You read the whole preamble. You show me. I asked those guys. You show me one word which is not closer to secularism, progressive and secularism, and it is closer to communalism and fascism. There lies the answer. If you look at part 3, article 12 or 12 to 35, if I am wrong, I am not a law student, please excuse me. If you look at the fundamental rights of citizens, article 12 to article 35, you read each article and you take article 12, read it, and you think whether it cites the secular value or it cites the communal value or fascist value. You go from article 12 to article 35. Every article is closer to the secular values of what our founding fathers have propagated, and not even one law or one article is closer to the fascist and communal agenda that today the rightists are up to. That shows, even if secular and socialist was not part of the preamble, our constitution basic framework stands on the pillars of secularism. It's as simple as that. Article 12 to Article 35 is the heart of our constitution, which enshrines our fundamental rights as citizens of this country. What is a country? What is a country? Is it just boundaries? Is it just water, mountains, landmass? Is it that? Or is it the map along with that Mata, which the rightists say, along with the flag? Is that? There is one great poet from Andhra Pradesh, Sri Sri. He says, Deshamante matti kadu, Deshamante matti kadu, Deshamante manishulu. Means, he says, the country doesn't mean just, not just land or, soil. Nation means its people. The people of that land means the nation, not just the landmass. So someone tomorrow, if those guys in Haridwar, a few days back, said that we will kill all the Muslims or we will pump so many bullets into Manmohan Singh, means they are anti-people of the nation. If they are anti-people, they are anti-nation. So they are the anti-nationals. Any guy who is against the people of the nation are called anti-nationals. Not what these rightists tell, anti-national tukde gang, not that. So coming back to the topic, so we had a sound constitution, and that constitution stood the test of 75 years. For that, every generation of the day, right from 50s, every leader, every generation of that day fought for that constitution, protected it, so that it can be passed on to the next generations. And today, if we are still having that constitution, it is because of the sacrifices and fighting spirit of our forefathers who stood by the constitution, protected it, and transferred it as it is for these generations. But in 1996, we failed for the first time. Somewhere I feel, but still there was a leadership like Atal Bihari Vajpayee. We need to think of the liberal side on both sides. He was not as fascist or as communal as today's establishment. He was still a moderate within the BJP. So there we did funk, that generation funk. That means I am also part of that generation. But what we did in 2014, somewhere what all our forefathers did right from 1947 or before that, pre-independence, on the eve of independence and post-independence, somewhere we have diluted the principles, which has led to the seize of our constitution and constitutional mechanisms. And today, Indian National Congress, that is why I said I will not go much into what the Congress did and stuff like that, because that is in public domain, everyone can see and learn from it. As soon Indian National Congress was there before Gandhiji also. But Indian National Congress gained momentum once Gandhiji came in 1915 or something. My numbers might be wrong. I'm just talking extempore. So once he came only, he felt, that there is something wrong that Congress is doing. Until then, Congress was the platform where eminent lawyers, eminent businessmen, rich people were part of it. Okay, if 72 or 82 delegates were there in the first thing is all the best cream of rich people, used to come there. But Congress of those days were not related to the masses. When Gandhi came, that is when he said that if we have to take this movement and fight this British and get freedom for this country, we need to go to the masses. We need to go to the villages, because at that time, rural population of this country was somewhere around, maybe I'm sure it would be somewhere around 90% or something like that, or 80% maybe. So he knew that you cannot fight for the freedom of this country without 80% participation. So he was the first man who gave direction for the Congress where it was lacking. So even though it founded in 1885, till Gandhiji arrived, Congress didn't have the direction to move. And that is the greatness of Gandhi. All the pain that he underwent for apartheid in South Africa, he came to his country and he showed direction for a directionless Congress. And that is when, when other people like Nehru, all other, I cannot tell names of all of them, Kalam, so many. How many can I name? There are hundreds. If I name 10, I'll be doing injustice for the other 90. So everyone joined, all the great leaders joined Gandhi. And that is when civil disobedience movement, Satyagraha, non-cooperation movement, and all this came in. Then the amalgamation of, the Khilafat movement and with the Congress, that amalgamation also is very important. So there was some sort of a working relationship between Jinnah, Muslim League and Indian Congress. And that sort of system Gandhi put in place so that there was synergy between different faiths and there is a united struggle against the British. So if you look at today's position, we need something similar. The Indian National Congress, can I take 10 minutes more, Yusuf? Hello?
Yeah. Sir, actually what I suggest, sir, we can have you take.
I'll finish off, okay? Just give me some time. So friends, what happened was, if you look at the INC pre-independence, it pushed the white Britishers out of the country and brought independence for India. And if you look at what Congress should now do, post what has happened in 2014 and 2019, and the problems that we are facing, it is time to liberate our constitution. It is time to liberate our democracy, because our democracy and constitution, along with all its constitutional mechanisms, are under siege. If this generation of ours don't fight like our forefathers did and break the shackles that our constitution and all its mechanisms are under the black Britishers, please note this word. If we don't fight against the black Britishers within, I'm putting that word within again, okay? Now you know who the black Britishers are. If you don't fight these black Britishers today and liberate the constitutional mechanisms and the democracy, we will not be doing justice for our future generations, and our future generations will question us for our indecisiveness, friends. So it is high time today that Indian National Congress reinvents itself, like what Gandhiji did, and go to the masses, expose these black Britishers or those who have put our constitution and democracy under siege. We need to go to the people, convince them the second war of Indian independence should start, and this generation, Indian National Congress, Neo-Indian National Congress, should fight against the communal fascist black Britishers of the day and liberate our constitution and thereby make the democracy thrive again. So with these words, I end my small speech. Thank you so much.